Look, the president has made it clear that he wanted these documents to be declassified. He wanted the American people to see the truth, and now he wants those who perpetuated these lies and this scandal to be held accountable. As for what accountability looks like, as the director said, it's in the Department of Justice's hands, and we trust them to move this ball forward.
Well, you would agree President Obama cannot be charged based on that immunity.
Again, I'll leave that to the Department of Justice.
That you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable.
Barack Obama has spent years trying to guard his legacy like a fragile museum exhibit, but Karoline Leavitt and Tulsi Gabbard have just stormed the velvet ropes with sledgehammers. Obama's carefully polished image of wisdom and grace gets shredded into campaign leftovers, Netflix filler, and endless reminders that behind the teleprompter shine, there's a shallow operator who left behind chaos disguised as hope. Their roast doesn't just bruise his ego, it dismantles his mythology piece by piece.
Contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon.
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week and the documents that we will be releasing later this week.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Karoline Leavitt comes in sharp, almost surgical, aiming directly at the contradictions that define Obama's public life. She highlights how the former president still tries to insert himself into every political cycle while pretending he's above the fray. Just weeks ago, Obama was front and center at Democratic fundraising events, giving grandiose speeches about democracy, as if his 2 terms hadn't laid the foundation for the exact fractures now threatening his party. Leavitt points out the irony that Obama criticizes division while having spent 8 years perfecting the art of cultivating it. His public calls for unity ring hollow when the record shows he spent more time framing opponents as enemies of progress than building bridges. For Karoline, the hypocrisy is the punchline, and she turns it into a relentless refrain.
And this judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You took me right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Tulsi Gabbard then shifts the angle, taking a sledgehammer to Obama's foreign policy legacy, the very arena where he once claimed moral high ground. She digs into his recent attempts to lecture about peace and diplomacy, while reminding everyone of the drone strike record that left his Nobel Peace Prize looking like the most ironic trophy in history. Obama can host all the Netflix documentaries he wants about civility and global citizenship, but Tulsi notes the truth. His decisions destabilized regions, empowered adversaries, and left countless people questioning what American leadership actually stood for. Every time Obama appears on stage to give another polished speech about wisdom, Tulsi throws it back in his face with the raw record of blood and contradictions.
And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome.
Karoline doesn't let the domestic side slide either. She seizes on Obama's constant need to weigh in on social issues as if the world has been waiting for his post-presidential musings. From commenting on political candidates to pretending his playlist tweets matter to anyone outside his fan club, Leavitt skewers the performative nature of it all. His Spotify lists and summer reading recommendations are paraded like state decrees, but Karoline paints them as desperate attempts to stay culturally relevant. The more he curates his image, the more obvious it becomes that the man who once commanded arenas now clings to Instagram likes and streaming platform contracts.
While publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, in private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump.
Tulsi goes deeper on the theme of relevance, drawing attention to Obama's Netflix empire. She roasts the production deals that promised thought-provoking content, but mostly delivered vanity projects designed to keep his face in the spotlight. The supposed statesman has been reduced to a Hollywood brand manager packaging soft-focused nostalgia for the very years that fueled voter backlash in the first place. Tulsi skewers the absurdity of Obama preaching about leadership and sacrifice while cashing in on the same system he once claimed to transcend. In her roast, the legacy isn't wisdom, it's a carefully monetized rerun.
And so this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media, none of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing...
Karoline takes that opening and hammers Obama's campaign involvement in the 2024 cycle. His attempts to act as kingmaker have only highlighted the failures of his protégés. She underscores how his endorsements and campaign appearances fall flat, not inspiring, but reminding voters of the promises that went unfulfilled. The candidate who was supposed to represent change left office with a trail of disillusionment, and Karoline seizes the chance to remind everyone that Obama's political magic was always more smoke than fire. Every fundraiser speech he delivers now is less a rallying cry than a recycled sermon, delivered by a man terrified of irrelevance. While Obama was busy securing his global reputation and future media deals, Democrats lost governorships, state legislatures, and congressional seats at historic levels. Tulsi frames it perfectly. Obama left behind not a stronger party, but a weaker one, fractured and confused, worshiping a symbol rather than confronting the reality. For her, the comedy is in how long it took them to notice.
That President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud, perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning. And the worst part of this is Obama knew that truth, and so did all of the other corrupt officials involved in this scam, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and many others.
Karoline then zeroes in on Obama's trademark rhetoric, the soaring speeches, the cadence, the pauses engineered for applause. She dissects the way those speeches sound profound but often collapse under scrutiny. Just this summer, when Obama gave a talk warning about disinformation, Karoline replayed the irony. This was the man who mastered the art of packaging half-truths into slogans that sold like scripture. Hope and change were never policies, just bumper stickers. Karoline skewers the hollowness of words that never translated into transformation, exposing Obama as a master salesman who ran out of product long ago. Tulsi doesn't let the hypocrisy slide either. Tulsi paints Obama not as a healer, but as one of the great accelerators of division, a man who pretends to lament the storm he helped unleash. His recent calls for civility sound less like wisdom and more like damage control for a legacy slipping further out of his grasp.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true.
Karoline adds the cultural layer, poking fun at Obama's endless appearances in glossy magazines and social media campaigns. She notes how he still projects himself as the voice of cool sophistication, yet every attempt feels more dated, like a dad still wearing skinny jeans from 2010. The more Obama clings to his curated cool, the more obvious it becomes that he's chasing relevance, not shaping it. Karoline uses this image of the former president as a middle-aged influencer to strip away any lingering aura of untouchable charisma. Tulsi dismantles the image of humility by contrasting it with the reality of extravagance, showing that Obama's words about empathy are as hollow as the promises he once made on the campaign trail.
Director of National Intelligence Gabbard's report further confirms what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption, except on the part of Barack Obama and the weaponized intelligence agencies at the time. The Russia hoax was a blatant lie, all ginned up by Democrat political operatives that were signed off on by then President Obama and leaked to the news media to launch a years-long witch hunt against President Trump and his...
Together, Karoline and Tulsi form a relentless 1-2 punch. Karoline dismantles the image from the cultural and political angles, while Tulsi crushes the foreign policy and hypocrisy narrative. They roast not just the man, but the brand, exposing how carefully manufactured it was and how quickly it crumbles when subjected to scrutiny. Obama's greatest achievement wasn't policy or leadership, it was branding himself as something he never was. And in their roast, that brand gets torched until nothing remains but the embers of unmet promises and contradictions. What makes their roast so devastating is that it captures the essence of recent events, Obama inserting himself into campaigns. Their roast doesn't just mock Obama, it reduces his legacy to a cautionary tale about the dangers of believing your own myth. Karoline and Tulsi strip away the gravitas, the eloquence, the carefully staged appearances, and leave only the raw reality. A former president clinging to relevance, desperate to control a narrative that has long since escaped him.
Fast forward to when this report was released in January of 2017. DNI Clapper, Obama's DNI, led the production of it. CIA Director John Brennan tasked 5 people in his organization and worked with the FBI to produce this new assessment that was a 180-degree flip-flop from the several assessments that led up to the election. The Obama-directed intelligence assessment said that Putin and Russia did aspire to help elect Donald Trump in that 2016 election.
Their roast guarantees that no matter how many documentaries he films, no matter how many fundraisers he headlines, the laughter will always be louder than the applause. And that, more than anything, is the final blow to his myth. Karoline Leavitt wastes no time twisting the knife deeper, reminding everyone that Obama's so-called wisdom only looks impressive in the absence of real competition. She paints the picture of a man elevated not by unmatched brilliance, but by a media bubble desperate for a hero. Karoline uses that disappointment as her fuel, turning Obama's brand into the biggest con job in modern politics. Tulsi follows by demolishing Obama's foreign policy halo once more, this time highlighting how his recent attempts to comment on global conflicts only remind the world of his failures. Whenever Obama offers his insights on Ukraine, Gaza, or the shifting power balance in Asia,
The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Tulsi points out that these are the same regions weakened by his indecision and half measures. The man who once drew a red line in Syria and then pretended not to see it crossed now dares to lecture the world about resolve. Tulsi shows how every word he utters about global stability serves as a reminder of how much he destabilized. The irony is sharp, and Tulsi wields it like a blade. Karoline swings back to the domestic field, skewering Obama's obsession with legacy events. From unveiling his presidential center in Chicago to curating appearances at high-profile summits, Obama acts like a curator of his own museum, desperate to freeze his image in marble. He speaks about protecting democracy while presiding over mass surveillance programs that chipped away at freedoms. He praises the free press while presiding over a government notorious for targeting whistleblowers. He criticizes populism while ignoring the economic pain that fueled its rise. Tulsi stitches together these contradictions into a brutal portrait. Obama as the polished face of establishment hypocrisy. The roast hits harder because it isn't just rhetoric, it's reality, delivered by someone who lived inside the machine and saw its gears grind.
Still, the ODNI then, Obama's ODNI and Obama's FBI director, they went and briefed Congress in a classified briefing, and not once did they mention that Putin or Russia aspired to help Donald Trump get elected. This is all in the documents that we released. A few days later, however, there was a secret meeting that was called a National Security Council meeting with the national security principals and President Obama's senior cabinet members. And after that meeting, the Obama ODNI, James Clapper, his assistant, sent out a list of taskings for intelligence community leaders saying, per the president's direction, the tasking was to develop a new intelligence community assessment that details how Moscow tried to meddle in the election in favor of Donald Trump.
Karoline closes the extended assault with a reminder of how quickly history exposes myths. The glow that once surrounded Obama has dimmed with each passing year, not because people forgot him, but because they remember him too well. The economy that stumbled, the healthcare system that never lived up to its sales pitch, the promises that dissolved into excuses, all of it remains part of the record. Karoline doesn't let the audience drift into nostalgia. She forces them to remember the failures with clarity, ensuring that Obama's myth never escapes the shadow of his reality. Tulsi adds the final crushing note, driving home the point that Obama is less a leader and more a carefully manufactured story that no longer sells. The applause may linger in his memories, but the stage belongs to others now, and all he can do is cling to relevance while the world laughs at the contrast between who he said he was and who he actually turned out to be. Together, Karoline and Tulsi guarantee that Barack Obama's image of untouchable grace will never again go unchallenged. Every time he steps onto a stage or streams onto a screen, their roast will echo louder, reminding the public that behind the glow of the spotlight lies a legacy built not on greatness, but on carefully managed illusions.